Who would be a Wolves fan, eh?
On goes Paul. People might yet win it here for Wolves. Flash in the shot. What a goal!
Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Wolves Fancast, part of a 19-in football network. It's me, Rich Hobbs, and I'm joined by the three musketeers. It's Stu, Tom, and Jafo. Big thanks to everyone who's tuning in live on YouTube and everyone who's listening on podcasts. We're, of course, going to talk about the 1-0 win against Spurs and all the fun and lovely drama that's come of it, and also the weekend as a whole, because it's been a pretty good one for Wolves fans. Now, gents, for those who are watching on YouTube, I'm a bit of the odd one out because I got the memo that we were wearing zip-ups. I did not get the memo that we were going official merch tonight.
Not sponsored or affiliated in any way.
No.
Sadly.
Yeah, but if you want to send us some free stuff,
yeah,
Wolves, by all means.
Feel free, yeah. Castle, Wolves, and any of the partners. We did, Jafo, we did that partnership quiz earlier this year. We're happy to, work with Tile Choice, Cadbury's, Caribbean Cruise, name them. We are guns for hire.
$5 is $5.
That's spreading more rumours about you, though, Stuart.
There's only rumours are just facts that have not been unearthed. Well, what we mentioned before in the for the people not in the loop, I mentioned that the fact that we've, for some reason, the look on Rich's face, the fact that we, since we, some magical reason, are getting games on Saturdays again, so we managed to do the review shows on Sunday night. And there has been nothing better than Heartbeat on a Sunday night since it finished. Tom, since you are the young buck here, did you ever watch Heartbeat when it was on?
No, I usually shut it off. The theme tune was banging, so I listened to the theme tune and then shut it off instantly, pretty much. Yeah.
You do realise I'm younger than Tom, right?
Yeah, but you're not.
I'm going to say, yeah.
You're not really.
What do you mean?
You're more worldly experienced.
Oh, have you seen my answers on quizzes?
You're dissing both of us here, mate.
I was going to say.
You're saying your phone looks old, and I'm thinking, I'm just not wise.
You basically, both of you never indulged in the pleasures of Aidensfield, have you? Which is both a problem and a curse. And I'm guessing that, Rich, have you been to the Aidensfield Arms and had a pint in there?
No, I haven't. No.
Why? You've been to Whitby enough times. It's literally down the road.
I know. And literally, I remember all the marketing material you get when you stay up there about it. But no, I've never done the tour.
Oh, it's amazing.
I know. I was going to say, is it worth it?
Yeah.
I'm actually not going to Whitby this year. I'm so sorry, I'm not.
No, it is. It's a decent as a walk in the countryside with a bit of, and you got Harry Potter people as well. It's
Harry Potter people.
Yeah, because part of the station in the first film is the same station, the train station that was used there. I was
going to say, I know a bit further forth you've got Alnwick and Alnwick Castle. I like how we had this really fucking fantastic Wolves game at the weekend. We've hit 4 minutes of talking about what we're wearing and parochial towns of Northern England for a day out.
Basically, watch ITV3. There you go.
There we go. We'll go. Well, I'll tell you what you couldn't watch. Not quite on ITV, but at 3 p.m. at Saturday, unless you were at Molineux, was Wolves beating Spurs. There we go. Reined it back in. Oh, guys, what a day. I mean, it pretty much had everything for Wolves. Especially a goal, which we're not exactly usually what we're usually blessed with. I think the thing that we like to start with the lineups because chronological order and all that kind of malarkey. I was a little bit confused by the lineup, and I guess my question to pose to you guys is particularly around one player, and it's Ryan Aït-Nouri. Does Lopetegui not rate him, or is there some tactical plan at place? Because I don't know. I think that he seems to be quietly slipping down that pecking order at left wing back.
I think it's more the case of where the hell did Johnny and that performance come from than anything else, because he's been terrible. But
He stores it up like an energy bar, Stu.
Yeah,
and you'll get 3 games out of him, and either he'll be knackered or he'll mash up his knee. But then you won't see him for 3 to 4 months, and then he'll do that, and he'll just be absolute badass Johnny.
But I
Might
think
be because he was actually playing left wing back though for most of that game, where he's actually good. Whereas any other full back position, he's not. Might just be that pure fact.
Yeah, that is probably the case more than anything else. I mean, it does kind of go back to the curse that we had towards the start of the season and the end of last season as well, where none of our fullbacks could last at one game without either collapsing or being replaced, and having 3 games in a week with when I'm playing the majority of it, you're thinking, well, you understand that. But I didn't. I presumed that Aït-Nouri, because I only saw the thing. I didn't see the subs at first. I thought Aït-Nouri must be injured. I thought, like, if he's not, if Bueno's not started, then surely Aït-Nouri will come in. It's pretty like for like at this point. But to not play him there is, unless he is thinking of him in Bale light, that he is not going to play him unless it's an attacking berth or coming on.
I mean, the other idea that I've seen circulated, and someone on YouTube still with the regular contributor, big thanks for joining in as per. So it says maybe it's around having Neto in front of him, who, again, slightly surprising start. Both these players who haven't, really featured in the first team, or at least started for a while. And again, it was nice to see Neto get that game time. I appreciate, and Stu, we have this conversation on a very regular basis. It slightly doesn't matter who you put up front, because you get the same results by and large. But I don't know, maybe that impacts that you've got Neto's a bit more of a, playing wide left. Johnny likes to come inside and play a little bit inverted. I don't know, but that definitely I found interesting in terms of the lineup. And of course, Diego Costa getting starters well, Jafo.
Yeah, I was quite happy to see Diego come back in. I know a lot of people probably turned on him yesterday a little bit more. I think there'll be more people against seeing Diego being involved because of what probably came across as a shit performance from him yesterday. But no, good to see Diego back in. We saw exactly what we've seen from Diego in that, whatever it was, a 20-minute, 15-minute cameo before we get into that and say, he injured his knee. He was running, he was pressing, he was doing everything he was doing. His work rate was there, the attitude was there. It just didn't seem like everyone else was on the same page as him. I just didn't think that some of the players who were on the pitch were doing the same thing. It just seemed a little disjointed.
Yeah, that first 10, 15 minutes, I mean, we were very much second best to a lot of it, and it kind of felt that, I don't know, we were just kind of completely tactically all over the place. You're completely right, Jafo. You had Costa doing one thing, some of the other forward players doing another. We didn't kind of know whether to, step to Spurs or drop off them, and we were kind of, man between 2 bus stops in the opening exchanges.
Yeah, totally agree. And you'd say it took that sort of injury to galvanise what was the start of the galvanisation. I think the true galvanising of that methodology of what Lopetegui wants to do with being a high press team and getting quick turnovers didn't really change till the second half, but we'll sort of come into that later. But there seemed to be a bit of a philosophy change, and I know we'll talk more about Raul as we go on. But from what we saw from Raul yesterday was probably, I'd say it now, probably his best game since Southampton away after he come back from his injury. I think probably most people would agree with that as well.
Yeah, easily.
1,000%. And Diego Costa, I think initially, I described it on Twitter at the time, Stu, that it did feel like Roy Kent in Ted Lasso, where he gets injured in what turns out to be his final game, and we don't know the extent of his injury. I might be making mountains out of molehills, but if he has properly done his knee, in which when you look at the replay of how he kind of lands on it, it looks quite similar to Klatnich's injury in terms of how it happens. So I think probably a lot of people are jumping to its ACL and whatever. I don't think any of the scans have been confirmed or whatever just yet, but it almost gave Wolves a bit of a reset point, as Truffaut said, where we had Raul on. I don't kind of know what, but it seemed like the entire setup changed, particularly Lemina's job changing, which I loved it. I'm sorry, I loved it. Just going, you know what? Just man mark Harry Kane.
If anyone's going to kick that little fucking arsehole all over the pitch, it's him. And he got away with it over and over again. And the one time he didn't was the most blatant dive ever. I mean, that's just abusive. And there's no need for those.
That's for your whole comment, that's payback. The problem was before the Costa injuries, they just broke our press every single time, like literally knife through butter. Like there was no cohesion of the press whatsoever, and I think Kane was dropping quite deep to collect it, giving him an extra outlet, for them to do that. And so absolutely, it was just a case of just sticking Lemina on him and just shutting him down, which he did. I thought he did fantastically well. I mean, who knew? You can't do. There's not much you can do wrong, is there? At the moment, Lemina, he can play centre half. He can mark England's, captain out the game. And what more can you ask for, really?
I mean, I think the thing that I enjoyed was he very clearly revelled in it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I was trying to think of who it reminded me of in a way, and I just couldn't think of a player because he just plays on that edge all the time. And I thought, he was subbed at half time, and I understand why Lopetegui did it, because I think subbing him off at half time was one of the reasons why we won the match, but his performance in the first half was one of the reasons why we didn't lose.
I think you're right. I think it gave a foundation. And I think the fact that we did, albeit I know they hit the bar in the first half with that free kick, because we'd gone in at 0-0, we had that solid foundation to come out, and obviously what turned out to be a fantastic game plan, which was quite shocking at the time, to bring Lemina off and to swap it round, and was able to be put in place because of what Lopetegui had done with Lemina and marking Kane for 45 minutes, and it'd give that grounding to work from.
Yeah, I just think it was brave because Lemina's been just a standout player since his arrival, and it could have been quite easy to take off Nunes or another player. But there were just points after that half an hour mark where Lemina was just playing in the middle of the back three because of Kane. I was gonna say he's at least an intelligent footballer if he lacks other parts of those words, I guess. But I could almost sense that there'll be a point where either he's going to try and get Lemina sent off, which he probably would have liked to have done, or he'll have cottoned on after a bit, and they'd have probably tried to exploit space a bit more than they actually did. So it kind of felt like it was to kind of get us through that tricky patch, because the first half wasn't completely awful by Wolves. That first 15, 20 minutes wasn't great, but they did sort of build up into the game as well. But I'm kind of interested in hearing your guys' thoughts on, chiefly because I did a post about it on Twitter and it got lots of people with varying viewpoints. Is Matheus Nunes, and I know Stu, you're very much like him when he's playing in his right position.
Yeah, I mean the reaction to that tweet was almost like it was written by every over 50-year-old man who doesn't know what pressing means, and it was so ridiculous. Like, I said this to my own uncle as well. I mean, he's in his 60s, so you get the vibe. How good would Steve Bull be playing if you put him on the left wing? He probably wouldn't do a very good job, would he? It's the same kind of idea that you're asking someone to play out of position in a role that's not his natural one. And yeah, obviously, technically wise, yeah, he's still midfield football or whatever. But he's clearly just doing a job. I don't think he would have been bought if Lopetegui had been here in the summer, because he doesn't really fit the system that we've got. And we're clearly not going to be playing with a flat three midfield, which we all thought we might do, with Lemina coming in with Neves, but it's just not going to happen. So you're not going to drop Neves, you're not going to drop Lemina because you can't. So you either show him in somewhere else. I mean, we've already talked ad nauseum about how shit all our forwards are, so it makes no difference anyway. He's still doing a better job than any of them fuckers. So even playing out of position, he's still doing an okay job. His position is in central midfield. So can we really judge him on something that's not his natural game? From my point of view, no. Well, you can, but it's not fair. So when the amount of vitriol that was coming down at him from a few people yesterday it was outrageous. It was like Steve Corica levels of bad. It was like I don't understand why they've got this idea from. And like when he was pulled off at Liverpool, like we had nothing in midfield as soon as he went off. There was nothing there because no one else was getting hold of the ball and moving forward with it. We had nothing. If nothing else, he, at least like Adama does in his own special way, he's a ball carrier. Yeah, he might lose a ball quite often, but at least he's trying something different. And we haven't got anyone else doing that. And at Liverpool in the second half, we got screwed because we had no one doing that. And then, for all his faults yesterday, I didn't think he was bad. I don't know what people expect. It's like they see the number and think, he's wanted by Liverpool. He's got to be the best thing. But you look at that performance that Bruno Fernandes put in today for United in that second half. That was one of the worst midfield performances I've seen for the last 20 years. It was absolutely diabolical. Nothing will be said about it. Gary Neville slagged him off, but nothing will be said. Yet you get someone like Matheus in his first year here, remember, his first season in a different country, different way of playing, out of position, and people are slagging him off like he's a joke. It's just, I mean,
I'll help you, to be honest, Stu. I'll help you dig yourself out of what people think is a hole, but I don't think it is. I think personally, yesterday, I thought at three of them at half time, I think the one who should have been hooked was Neves. I thought he was actually the most ineffective yesterday in the first half. I thought that the game passed him by too much. And I think at the three of them, he was the one who caused the most issues with not being able to press. I think it's hard to get these three, to get Lemina, Neves and Nunes to work in a three is going to be difficult. And I think we need to think about what's going to happen next season, because I think we've got to accept Neves is going to go at some point. This summer's going to be as lightly as ever. So Nunes is the one who's probably more adaptable to moving into what Lopetegui wants to do than Neves is, because I think a few people have said it now, whether it is yourself or somebody else, Stu, that Neves actually slows the game down too quickly.
Yeah. And I said it on Twitter.
If you look at the stats between us and Tottenham that are out there for how many quick breaks that we do. The amount of actually quick breaks that we do as a team is pathetic, considering the players that we've got. We've got the likes of Pedro Neto, Adama Traore, Pedence, who's very, he's not slow. We don't get the ball from back to front very quickly.
Yeah.
Which is what it is. Breaking the ball wide is great because it progresses yourself up the play, but it slows the play down because then everyone has to move across. There's no quick transition between that and then getting it into the box. We don't do that as a team. So I'd hate to be a little bit negative after such a glorious win, but I think people getting on the back of Nunes' back, and I'm with you, Stu, he's a little bit bizarre and unnecessary.
Rich, can you just put that thing up? That because I'll answer that from Ian Rowbury for the audio.
I was going to say for the audio, comment on YouTube, Stu. Can you really defend Matheus at this point? If he's out of position, but that doesn't make what he's doing okay. He's not doing okay. Giving the ball away like he did yesterday was shit.
But where did he give the ball away? What? This is the point. How he looks like he gives the ball away more than he does because he's running with the ball. The amount of shit passes that go out for a throw-in, is that giving the ball away? I think it is, but no one says anything about that because it's accepted. It's like the whole thing. I had a conversation about it yesterday. Like we were playing out from the back, which is, if you can do it, fine. Wolves doing it with the players that we've got is borderline at the minute for me still. But you've just got to accept it. You just go with it. There's method behind it. Yeah, you're going to get screwed sometimes and you're going to get caught like Saar did. I'm not being willfully blind to anything, but I'm just saying we've got actual creative players for a change who do something, who actually dribble with the football rather than just lump it long or hide. And you want him all, everyone wants him at the club because he dribbles, because he loses the possession. Well, how many times has Adama Traore lost possession or fucked up or done something in the last 5 years and people still sing his name from the rafters every week? Yesterday, deservedly so. But on the whole, that was his 10th Premier League goal for us. 10th. How is that acceptable? It's the whole hypocrisy of the thing that pisses me off. I accept that if you look at him, if you're ranking him on pure ability and his performances over the season, he ain't getting above a 6. But at the same time, I'm not going to have a go at him for that when he's been played out of position. So I'm not going to give him a pass and say, oh yeah, he's been a 9 out of 10 with an asterisk and say, yeah, okay, because that's obviously silly. But there's caveats to the argument that he's not as bad as people think he is.
The one problem he's got is he couldn't be any different to Matinho. They're completely different players. We've had years of watching Matinho, who never ever gives the ball away, or at least he didn't, in the first few years. Absolute class act, but he just did it all from deep and just sprayed it about. Never ran with the ball whatsoever. Now they're watching a different type of midfielder, and you do sometimes have to accept that there are flaws to the game. Like I agree. I don't think he was great, I must admit. I think when Matinho came on, it did make a big difference. I think he just fit the way the game was going and the system really well. And that's how Matinho has to be used now going forward. I actually thought he was okay at Liverpool as well. I don't think he was that bad. But I think he's the player you bring on with 25 minutes, 30 minutes left. He's not the player to use from the start anymore. So I think we've got to just get used to the fact it's got to be like this. And maybe he doesn't fit the Lopetegui system yet, but he's clearly got ability.
It's almost in a way where Matheus is doing the dirty work and wearing them down for Matinho to come on and benefit from that in the last 20-25 minutes, because obviously running is not what is possible for him anymore in the standards that he set 3 years ago, because he's an old man. That's the difference. Like you just said, he didn't give the ball away, but he came to us at 31?
Yeah.
He was very much the finished article, and had played in different leagues all over the world, all over Europe and international football against someone who's relatively young, playing out of position. The whole thing's just mad. But you're right, though. There's method in the madness, because we're seeing Matinho's best years. Well, best performances for years in these last 2 months, being used because he's been used properly.
Yeah, I think yesterday. I mean, in terms of subs, I think the last couple of games, I think we've been all a little bit critical of Lopetegui's tweaks, and it's not quite worked out, and it's lost the flow of the game. Whereas yesterday it was the complete opposite. Obviously, you had Jimenez coming on just before the half-hour mark, which we had a marked improvement from that. There was a switch at half-time to 3-5-2, as you said. So Collins comes on for Lemina, and then Adama comes on for Neto as well. And, you know, the shape of the team was a bit bizarre because Sarabia almost played a lot closer to Jimenez, which helps. We basically didn't play with a left winger for large portions of the game. And again, you talk about team, you know, I mentioned about Kane. It felt like Spurs didn't really kind of pick up on that at all. And, you know, it helped Johnny progress. It helped the midfielders progress. It helped Sarabia looks a different player second half as well. So did Raul, having sort, you know, I think Raul needs to have players near him. And so does the likes of Kuna as well. His link up play, you know, 67th minute is where we made our last couple of subs. So Matinho comes on for Matheus and Kuna comes on for Sarabia. And that was a real turning point, I think, in the game. And we just looked so much more assured in that 3-5, in that 3-5-2. It did almost feel, dare I say, like a lot of people reverted back to type from the Nuno days in a way that, you know, like you mentioned, the likes of Johnny, the likes of Kilman, Semedo, Neves improved second half as well. Traore seemingly knew his job a bit better, and Jimenez, he just looked like the player pre-head injury at one point. I think he had that header away, like he sort of darted across his man and sort of flashed a header wide, and moments later, you saw him sprinting 70-odd yards back, was it? To win the ball. And I just thought, where's this player been? It was like a trigger switched in his head and he just became that guy again.
It wasn't just his desire. I know when you said he needs people around him, but even you look for the goal, he hasn't done that for.
No.
Ojifo said it. He hasn't done that for over a year. Well, we know that he hasn't because of that stat now. But he hasn't had a turn and shot like that. He hasn't held the ball up like that, other than in fits and starts. And I think it's something has happened. Maybe it was the fact that he has been dropped by someone who's on holiday, and he's then come on to prove a point. Maybe that's all it needed. That he needed a proper kick up the arse, and yet he's got players near him, which helps, and he's got options. Which again, we didn't have options in the first half hour. When that first half hour, I can't remember who put it in when we had unexpected goals of 0 because we didn't have a shot of any kind.
That's the whole first half, I think.
Yeah.
I think that was the stats at half time.
Yeah, it was
39% possession when there was nothing. Even that Spurs. They were relatively well contained. We had nothing. There was no outball. There was no nothing. But then you have him come on, and then something happened. Maybe that's all it took. A bit of a rocket, because everything else has been tried. He's had different partners up front with him. He's had different formations, different wingers. Nothing's changed, other than yesterday he had to come on for someone who was half retired a year ago. So. Maybe that's all it needed, and hopefully it's not just a flash in the pan, and we get something out of this now. And he does the same thing on Sunday.
Well, that's 2 good games in his last 3, isn't it? Because he was good at Fulham as well. It was great against Liverpool, but not many people were.
No, I think that's a right. Fulham's a write-off, wasn't it? No, Liverpool was a write-off, wasn't it? Performance-wise.
Yeah, but like again,
too bad now, does it?
No.
That's all I'm saying. Fucking hell.
Yeah, but like he out-muscled. There was that one Adama put in. I mean, Adama put in a good cross, which was nice to see first and foremost. But then he barged his defender out the way and got off a header at goal, headed it down. Like I can't remember the last time he had a header like that in goal.
No, it was a proper. It sounds silly when I say it. When I say it was a proper header.
Yeah,
like it you know, he made genuine contact with it, and I think might have actually been. Did he have a similar one against Fulham? About
the one he flicked wide. Yeah,
he had one. He had flicked wide from quite. About, I think it was about the penalty spot, so it's quite far out for a header. But again, it was just like that desire and the bit of movement and the strength just to push off his man, and it was so nice to see. And even Adama coming on and just understanding his assignment. But there's a definite point. I think maybe it might have been Matheus coming on / Kuna, where the game turned sort of dramatically to the catalyst for me, or the Franz Ferdinand point for me, should we say, was when Neves started shooting because they realised Fraser Forster was in goal. And it was just like
the volleyball player, Fraser Forster.
It was just like Neves just had about 3 shots through the space of about 5 minutes, because he was like, might as well just see what this keeper can do. And we joked about it in the preview show, me, Dan, and Dave Edwards. You're like, just test him. He doesn't play an awful lot. See what he can do. So the first half was really frustrating because of that. And then, we started creating more and more. You had Kuna having a chance as well. I think Matheus was a real fault for a minute, and it was interesting what we were saying earlier about what Matheus does. And Matheus can be very safe with his passing a lot of the time. But yesterday, and particularly for a goal, all his passes are really progressive. They are all like forward, incisive passes, and they're not just, I'll play it off to the wing back, or I'll play it to Neves. They were really direct and just opened up the pitch. So, when you look back at the goal, Jimenez is unlucky with his shot. Traore gets off a great finish, but Matheus is in the centre of it. But part of me, and this isn't a dig at Traore, I was a little bit gutted that didn't go in by Jimenez, just because it was such a good bit of movement and such a good bit of play from him, and it was such a clean strike. I don't know, but it was still. I was not expecting that from Adama Traore to bring out a bloody scissor kick.
Well, it's when he plays best, ain't it? When he plays on instinct and he hasn't got to think. This is what he's like. Like the goals at Man City. That's the only example that we've got of him having time and not fucking it up. That's the only one. Yeah. All his other goals and his other performances and his brilliant crosses are when it's like instant, and it's almost like he's playing on instinct and he's doing it like that. That was instinctive yesterday, and you could tell it was. And like, how he was mobbed that he didn't go cartwheeling away and whatever. Superb. And in a way, I kind of feel better for him because he played very well and he put a decent performance in for the second time in a few weeks, which you could say, oh, well, this is what happens when you play for a contract. Well, fine. But maybe the same thing's happening with Raul as well. He's playing he's played for his future. So
I don't think there's any coincidence that Adama getting more consistency and Raul getting consistency is happening at the same time can be looked past, because we know how well they work together, how well as a partnership, how good they are together. So what one playing better is always going to encourage the other one. And I think Raul's confidence is always going to build when he sees a player who assisted him for so many games and so many times starting to play well, that he can start to do the things that he was doing before. And I think you were talking about it earlier, the way he's attacking the ball in the box now, he's trying to head the ball, he's trying to beat the defender. He's got the confidence to go and do that now because Adama is starting to get his consistency back a little bit, which is good. And that, whether he's playing for a contract or not, I don't really give a fuck, because at the end of the day, all I care about is Wolves getting points. And I do very much doubt that Traore is going to be here next year, because what he wants from a contract and what Wolves want to give him is so far between that it's just not going to happen. I probably shot myself in the fucking head now for that one. But, well, as I was saying, it's good. It's good to see consistency, and we'll start seeing results from Raul. And I think we can only see more and more going forward from them pair.
No, I think that's a really, really excellent point, Jeffo, because we mentioned about that header, and you kind of know what you get from a Adama Traore cross. It's not going to be a deep swinging, David Beckham-esque cross. It's usually quite a drilled, fast-paced ball, which you need to get in front of a defender for. And you're right, that bit of confidence and both of them playing together on form kind of didn't ever happen under Bruno Lage in the same way. And say Lopetegui seems to be kind of working his magic a little bit on those two, which it's definitely interesting to see. I did see, and I cannot remember who it was, so it's definitely not a personal dig. I'm saying, well, after today's game, we're clearly seeing the best of Adama Traore, so let's give him a contract. So, it is 1 or 2 games, and I don't know. There is going to be a huge. I find Adama Traore's career at Molineux fascinating, and interesting doing like a big retrospective thing on it, because I can't almost remember a more divisive Wolves player to play for a club for a significant period of time, and him split a fan base consistently. Like, because usually when you get a player who doesn't, does sort of split fans in terms of who they are or what they do, they don't last long. But he has seen out a 5-year contract, is it?
Yeah, and you have. It's not even like a kind of George Elokobi, Mo Kamara kind of cult figure. No. It's not like that. It's like you're either fully in the Traore love camp or you don't really want him to be here anymore. There's very few people in the middle. For someone who has been a consistent starter for the vast majority of the time, maybe going back to like someone like Simon Osborne or someone like that, who was a bit divisive for the way he played than his actual performances. But
I was going to say one thing. It was quite nice to see how happy everyone was for him, and there did seem to be a genuine happiness for Adama, because I think he is someone who. I was trying to think of this the other day. I think he is someone who kind of is impacted psychologically in games quite a lot, because for a player who gets fouled an awful lot, you never see him retaliate. He isn't someone like, let's say, like Jack Grealish, who then, throws his arms about, but he just kind of revert into his shell, and he isn't necessarily that flasher person and player in terms of giving it big bravado and what he does. And I don't know, I think when he's happy and really positive, it's really nice to see, if that makes sense. And to actually see him have that positive moment, and it not just be like an outpouring of all the emotion. It was just genuine happiness, and I don't know, that's quite nice to see. And he seems to be doing quite a bit of a PR campaign at the moment in terms of some of his community stuff as well. And it's just nice to see him happy.
It was a bit like that. Was it Brentford before he went on loan last year?
Yeah,
where the disallowed goal, where the whole squad just mobbed him, and he went straight over to Lage as well. And you could see then, even though he was on his way out, and everyone knew he was on his way out, he was still so loved by everyone else. Which is why the amount of times I've slagged him off, it's never got personal. It's always been about the football. It's a weird one with that, because there's been a lot of players who've been proper dickheads, Jamie O'Hara, who are never going to get a good word said about them. So it's just not going to happen, and rightly so. But Adama Traore seems a genuinely nice person, so it's never going to get personal with him. Yeah, and you can see that throughout the whole club and the way everyone reacts to him all the time.
I think you're right. I think he's just a bit delusional when it comes to his contract negotiations and how much money that he thinks he's worth. And I think nobody begrudge him playing well and being part of the team if he got that consistency that everyone everyone really wants Adama to be this consistent, amazing player, because it is that sort of like cult. That side of it is like that cult, like you said, the Elokobi sort of like Mo Kamara sort of thing. That side of his game, wanting him to do well, he's kind of like a bit like that. Wanting him to perform, but the thing is, they don't match up, and I think Ethan put it in the comments about it. He's got more bad games than good, and that's the problem. Is that we can love him for these magical moments, at Man City away, Fulham, when he smashed that one at the near post. Yesterday will be one of those moments. These magical moments have been so fleeting, and I think that's the most worrying and concerning thing about his whole career. And I think you said earlier he scored 10 goals. 10 goals in the 5 years he's been here. 2 goals a season is just. It's just any other player.
That's good for our strike force. That is. That's really
I mean, you're probably right, Tom. You're probably right.
Yeah. The thing is that performance has come off the back of 2 poor performances, hasn't it? Liverpool away, he did absolutely nothing, and Fulham away, he was poor as well. So yeah, probably just don't play him for 2 games and then play him in the one after that, and then he should be all right. But it's classic, isn't it? It's not. He had a spell. He had that purple patch, didn't he? In the when it was him, Jota, and Raul, and he was great most games, but unfortunately, we just haven't seen it enough. And I still think he's got a part to play. I think actually one of the reasons Neto played, it wasn't really rewarding Neto so much. It was like, who do you play? Because you weren't going to play Adama after that, his recent performances, or Podence.
Well,
so I think
punish Podence. That's what.
Yeah, well, this is it. I think Neto got him by default. So that's not nothing against Neto whatsoever. Obviously he was ring rusty yesterday, and he's going to be. But who else? Who else do you play? Kuna obviously wasn't fit. I'll give a shout out to Kuna as well, because I did think he made a big. Again, nothing spectacular, but he definitely links the play between the midfield and the striker. That give and go with Raul. I mean, he should have scored that yesterday. I mean, that was the opportunity for a striker to score. It was actually quite a poor finish, but his movement was very good. I think, as I say, he runs forward with the ball. He plays with his head up, which I love. And I think probably him and Raul, with up top, and maybe with Sarabia is probably the way forward, or you play him as a 2. If he decides he wants to carry on with the sort of the Nuno system, let's say.
Yeah, I think he seems to just make everyone that bit better, Kuna. Into you say that link up, because it's not just for link up play, is it? As you said, Tom, like it's the way he does get his head up and he turns and he is a direct runner. I think the only thing that's missing, and you could pretty much level this at any forward at Wolves, it is that finishing element, because that the chance he had was a big chance, and I think we'd be probably having a slightly different conversation about him and the game if we didn't, if it ended 0-0 or whatever. But the movement to get like the press and the way, because I think it was Martinez, like you had Neves pressing initially, then it was Kuna, and then the ball drops to Tino, of course, who's got the presence of mind because he's, only been on the pitch 10 minutes as opposed to 70 to pick the pass. And every pitch we've not kind of talked about, bearing in mind we kept a clean sheet against the 4th best team in the league, was the defence and Jose Sarr, because I think they really held their own throughout it. I mean, I feel sorry for commentators with Wolves, because they must get sick and tired of hearing, themselves say, and Craig Dawson clears the ball there, because he is just a pissing ball magnet in the box.
It's absolutely superb. Again, what a signing! Like a huge. We've got him and Lemina for 10 mil.
Yeah,
so it was ridiculous, and they've transformed the season. Obviously, along with Lopetegui and whatever, but they're massive, both of them. And it's no coincidence that Semedo's got a lot better since Dawson's been in, because he's on his side, and probably Kilman as well, to be fair, because he's got someone talking him through. I mean, as many faults as Cody has as a defender, his communication was always good, and Kilman always played better when Cody was next to him, and I think it's a similar mantra with Dawson. And he's a leader as well. You can tell he's talking everyone through the game. He's he demands more when he thinks the standards are slipping. He loves a big tackle, which is what you want. He was Colossus again. Love him already. And
I think Jose Sarr's benefited as well, because there's no nerves anymore. And I remember being on here about 4 or 5 weeks ago saying that same thing, like when Bentley signed, And it was like, well, it's like a turning point in Sarr's career. Well, we obviously know what he can do because of last season. Does he now sort himself out, or do we mosey on through and get a replacement for him in the summer, or do we stick with a decent number 2 in Bentley, who's got obviously first team experience in the Championship? I had no idea which way it would go. I didn't know either way. But Dawson is more responsible for that than anything else because, like I said, Tom Semedo, he was boo boy number 1 target 2 months ago, because he was doing 3 people's jobs all the time, especially for crosses coming over from the left-hand side that hadn't been cut out. So he was then having to cover for Collins as well, who was covering for Kilman, who'd gone walkabout because of... The whole thing was a complete joke. And individual players have got scapegoated because we didn't have a leader in defence. Now we've got one. It's no surprise that we've conceded 3 goals in 2 weeks. It's like, well, it's almost like another they're singing a modified version of the Jody Craddock song to him at Liverpool, which was nice. And he's very much like a Jody Craddock figure that he's just coming, no nonsense. A bit Mike Williamson, like we mentioned before as well. No one would say Craig Dawson. You would have Craig Dawson on the back of your shirt, but you couldn't slag anyone off for doing so because he's amazing. And you know what? You look at the state West Ham are in now, and that performance against, I know it was against Brighton, whatever, but still, that was the kind of performance that we were putting in at the back before he came here.
Yeah.
And 1,000%.
Yeah,
we've weakened them as much as helping ourselves.
I mean, yeah, if you pick one actual key moment from that game is when Son picked the ball up, was driving down that left-hand side, when he hit the underside of the bar. I didn't know at the time, but looking back and watching the replay, is Dawson gets a touch on that.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't, Sonny scored. So it's these key moments, these, this 5%. And we can't slag Collins and Kilman off too much because they're both fairly young guys, and they're doing as best as they can. But Dawson, he is this ready-made defender. He's your last 5-10%, which makes the hell of a difference. And you've seen it in key moments, and you've seen it in key moments over and over again. And he's going to prove to be the icon signing, other than probably Lemina, as you were saying earlier, Tom, of that January transfer window. You cannot put into words the quality and the leadership and everything that he's brought to this team since he's been here in just what is essentially 2 months.
But again, these players were picked out by our scouting department ages ago, and fucking Sellers, with thumb up his arse, couldn't get it done.
Yeah, because
who knows what the season would have been like if we'd have got him in, earlier on.
Well, yeah, because Dawson was very heavily linked in the summer, and it was almost waiting for the dominoes to fall, wasn't it, with Dawson? Because he was clearly wanting to move away from West Ham for personal reasons, and I think it was it was waiting on Leicester to sell somebody or Villa to sell someone. Yeah,
it was the Bednarek deal that caused it all to fall through.
Yeah, and I know potentially it's a sliding door. That could be a huge sliding doors moment. I still think would have
sliding
struggled.
Dawson moment.
Like it.
Nice. But again, even Collins, when he came on, looked assured in a back three as well. I am intrigued to see whether they'll go for a back three and maybe play, I don't know, Neves, Lemina, with, I don't know, maybe even Matheus in there as well, and have Kuna, Jimenez, Sarabia, 1 or 2 out of those 3 up top. I think it's going to be interesting. More
circumstance with Tottenham.
Yeah.
I think that was one of those times when you see a manager match up for formation to counter out what Tottenham are doing, because Tottenham have been one of the sides who have stuck with the 3 at the back formation through thick and thin. Whether that's because they've got an Italian manager or not, beggars, you can't really say, but you've seen that when teams have played Tottenham, is that they have gone against them in the same way. They have put 3 centre-backs in there to try and match their system and nullify what they've tried to do. And I don't think it'll be a long-term thing to bring it back in. Although some of the Wolves dads would probably love it because it harks back to Nuno. Yay.
It does give an option to shit out a point every now and then, though.
Yeah.
I think when games need it, that's just not going our way. It does give us a fallback. Now we're in a position where, we only need to get the occasional point here and there, sort of thing. It might give us the opportunity against some of the bigger sides just to try and shut up shop.
Yeah, because he did it. Lopetegui did it his first couple of games as manager, didn't he? He brought on Toti Gomez on the hour mark, didn't he? And I don't know, maybe it was just because it was a bit more of a noticeable switch and whatever. And again, it's just part of his play, the Lopetegui playbook, isn't it? Sometimes where he knows he can, he has that ability and that, I guess, trust and faith in his players to make these tactical changes. And it feels like 4 times out of time it's paying off. Mentioned a couple of the slapdash results recently that's not quite happened, but I thought it would probably be a good time to reflect on Lopetegui and the impact he's had, because when you kind of compare league tables to since he's joined, I think the graphic I managed to find, I think he's been manager for 10 games now for Wolves, and that went off since he joined the club. Off that period alone, we'd be 6th.
We cut off on the first one.
I haven't.
That's bad that we're actually.
I was going to say, there we go. The YouTube banner was covering the bottom bit.
Yeah, we all knew it anyway.
I mean, we're still. I mean, we're 5 points outside the relegation zone, I believe, at the moment. If I can go to my next graphic, I mean, again, just we're killing it at the moment. And I think, we had a couple of poor results and frustrating results as much as anything else with, the Bournemouth one, I think, is one which everyone is still carrying a bit of a grudge against. But I think if you take that one out, there's not an awful lot of complaining to be done, is there?
I mean, the Bournemouth was just this year's. It's traditionally there's always one. It's Huddersfield, Albion,
Norwich,
Bournemouth. There's always one awful, terrible rubbish club that messes us up, and we've got 1 point against Bournemouth all season. Well, it's to be expected. This is Wolves 8 after all. This happens, but the fact that even despite that, we still would have been 6th out of, in terms of form since he took over. Is roundabout, which is what I was saying a few weeks ago, that we could go on a run that would get us into Europa League / Conference League, and people say, but this is where this squad should be. It's not a joke. This squad is better than has been showing for a long time under morons and someone who lost his mind, which is again no fault of Nuno's fault. Just end of the road. But still, we deserve to be in the top 10 over the course of a season, because that's what the squad is. Even though we can't score goals properly, we're still more than good enough to be up there. And the fact that we're still proving it week after week. I mean, we could go to Newcastle and they're on a pretty poor run of form at the minute. We could go up there and lose 2 or 3. It wouldn't be a surprise. But we could go up there, shit house of 1-0. And then we'd have 20 points in 11 games. I mean, superb.
It's huge. And I think you can't see it quite clearly from the graphics that we have got for those watching on YouTube. But Soccer Neophytes on Twitter has been updating a post-World Cup table. And at the teams in the bottom of 8, Wolves are the only team to have a positive goal difference. We've got a +2. Yeah, we're the only team at the bottom 8 to have come out this with, and that says everything about we need to know about what we just said about Dawson, what we said about Lemina. It's all there to see, and that's the fact we're just not conceding goals. Okay, we're scoring the goals at a slightly better rate, but we're just not conceding them now, which is good, and we're not leaking goals at the same rate.
No.
In that 10 games, we've played City, Liverpool twice, and Tottenham as well. and United. Yeah.
It's why when you look at like the fixtures that are remaining as well. I mean, I did a tweet about it, and I was kind of curious to kind of get your guys' opinions because it was part of a Twitter corner. question where I was sort of like, you look at the games we've got left, and it's Newcastle, Leeds, Forest, Chelsea, Brentford, Leicester, Palace, Brighton, Villa, Man U, Everton, Arsenal, and I know a lot of people to start with were very, at the start of the season when things were looking ropey and whatever. Like you look at the last sort of 3 games of the season, you're like, Man U and Arsenal in there, but I think you take those two, you take those last 3 games out of it, and maybe all right, you pull in Brighton as well because they're in good nick. And I don't look at any of those fixtures without going, we can get points in these now. Even Chelsea at home, for Pete's sake. I know they're absolute shambles at the moment, and they might just about turn it round by the time we play them. But I think my sort of prediction was we'd hit the 38, 39, 40 point mark by the time we play Brighton. So we'll have hit it by Palace. Is that kind of where you guys are sort of seeing Wolves' trajectory? I mean, we're 10 to 12 points away from that at the moment on 27 points. So, I'm sure Stu will go, actually, you don't need 40 points to survive. You barely even need 38 these days.
It's a bit 36, actually.
But projection's 33, to be fair, for this season. So.
Is it really?
Yes, it's really that low. The PPG profit. PPG profit. I think something like that on Twitter.
I mean, even if you conservatively said it was 36, just to make my maths nice and easy for its 3 wins. I mean, that is. Oh, I'm going to kill myself for doing this because it's toxic positivity. We could do that in the next 3 games.
I said that by the first international break of the year, we wouldn't even be talking about relegation anyway, and I'm still sticking by that. Well, I'm not even thinking about it anymore. We're not going down. It's not even. You look at the state of half the league; it's fucking awful.
Well, I was going to say that
it's like
we said about one of the best things about this weekend, Stu, and it was how pretty much every result went our way that needed to. So obviously, Bournemouth, bottom of the league, go 2-0 up against league leaders, managed to lose. Palace, who are in really just plummeting at the moment, managed to lose to Villa, who Villa are really annoying me. How they're on 34 points or something silly? They
were talking about Europe on the radio. Just
yeah.
I mean, to be fair, that could be a Villa fan within 10 minutes of any conversation with them mentioning Europe.
Daz was goaded on though. To be fair, he was deliberately teeing them up to humiliate the cells. So,
I mean, to a point, I cut them off my graphic because they're just it is very much these teams in that mix now. But West Ham just absolutely abysmal yesterday. Leeds managed to lose. Southampton, Leicester in the late kickoff, I was a bit unsure about which way I wanted it to go because, do you want to condemn a team or drag another team in it? And you know what? It's dragged Leicester right in it all of a sudden. To the fact, there's goal difference. Is very superior, but we're 3 points ahead of Leicester now. And then Forest and Everton draw. So there's been a bit of a status quo changing there, and doubt that Man United will get dragged into it after being pumped 7, but that's a good weekend of fixtures for Wolves.
But if you're looking at it the other way around, we're 13th at the minute, same points as Palace on 12. By actual logic here, you're asking, are 5 teams below us at this present moment in time all going to have a better running in the last 12 games of the season than we are? It's just not going to happen, is it? That's at the very least.
Yeah, not on our current form. You wouldn't, and you look at some of the teams. I mean, I don't know if anyone watched Everton Forest, but that was a championship game. That was a championship game all over. They both look shite, especially Forest. I think Forest might be slap banging it.
I mean, just look at Forest goal difference.
Yeah.
It sticks out like a sore thumb on -24 compared to the likes of Leicester and West Ham, right? They get pumped 4-0, but theirs is still -10 compared to everyone else around them, which is why I think West Ham will just about be fine. I mean, curious guys, who do you think your three are going to be for going down at this point?
Bournemouth. Southampton. I do think Southampton, but they've got some kind of weird knack under the milk tray man trying to save them down there, are they? So, I mean, I could hope for half the league to go. But
I was going to say that's a frustrating thing because
I think
Bournemouth. I see a lot of them go.
I think Bournemouth are done. I think Forest could very easily Blackpool this up or haul it up. Depends. There's been so many examples over the years where you've had a team who's come at the blocks, who've got themselves mid-table, thinking they're okay, and then they're nowhere near okay. And now their brilliant home record has been they couldn't even beat Everton at home. Well, that's not that great then, is it? So it's one they could easily get pulled into it. That's the thing. There's so many of them that I think, other than Bournemouth, it could literally be any of them. But
I don't think Leicester will go down. I think Leicester will be fine.
For argument's sake, I'd at this moment in time, I'd say Bournemouth, Forest. Yeah, Everton. Why not? Be a laugh, wouldn't it?
I'm glad you said Everton. I'm glad you said Everton. Even if you do love Dyche, I'm glad you said Everton.
Well, they bought him in after the window closed, so that's the caveat there to get my argument out.
Yeah, I'd rather see Everton get relegated next season. That'd be more fun.
Oh, in that brand new stadium. Oh,
yeah.
No, they're not there.
They're not there.
No. So Stu wants their first season to be played in the Championship. Is it?
Yeah.
Because it's not going to. Yeah. It's not going to be finished till December. So, and then they only give that dispensation to Spurs, obviously because they're a London club, and they'd gone slightly over, hadn't they, because of things that had happened to start the season at Wembley. They're not going to do that with Everton. They've got another year of goodies yet.
I'd like him to see them get relegated from there last year.
That'd be nice.
I've got nothing against Everton. I just, from Schadenfreude.
Definite Schadenfreude though.
Oh yeah, I do.
Yeah, I think Leeds will consider themselves very lucky that they picked up a manager as good as they have as well. I think Javi Gracia is very overlooked as a manager. Watford fans still think he's an incredible guy, and I think he's going to start seeing some results turn around. It's difficult for him because the way that it was left in by what is essentially what's the guy for the TV show, but he's basically him. Yeah, the American guy. He is left Leeds in a bit of a shambles, and I follow him on LinkedIn. Weirdly enough, it's a bit of a caveat, a bit of a fucking tangent thought, but he posted a LinkedIn that he's a compassionate and loving leader. I'm just like, and this was after he got sacked. I'm just like, what are you doing?
It's very LinkedIn, isn't it? Though?
It is. It's like, you're supposed to be a football manager. What the fuck are you talking about?
There's a time and a place, isn't there?
Yeah.
Oh no, I don't know. I think it's going to be an interesting running. I know lots of people are still kind of talking about how close it is and stuff like that. There's still a decent amount of football still to be played, but it would take a absolute peak Wolves meltdown for us to drop it from here, and I think it just feels like all of a sudden we've got our ducks in a row now, which is good to see. Couple of questions from Twitter Corner. We've talked about my bit from the games we're making. A question from Matt Guy he asks, if the 5 subs rule hadn't come in, but we still followed the same arc and got Julian Lopetegui in after Arsenal, would we be more at risk of going down, or would Lopetegui have just adapted to suit? Because he has been very trigger happy using the 5 subs compared to when Nuno got the chance to use them, when Bruno got the chance to use them. I mean, personally, I just think he's a very good coach, and if he didn't have 5 chances, he'd back himself with 3 chances to make changes.
It hasn't always worked, has it? Like in the last couple of weeks, it's gone the other way. Like the subs have made the squad progressively worse. But I think what it did help with was the fact that our players were so unfit. More of them could be taken off at once and replaced. In the early days, before when we had actual proper medical people in charge, I think that process would have took a bit longer, so we might not have had as many points as we've got now because of the fitness issues. I think from kind of now onwards, we've got a clear run really. I don't think we've got 2 games a week, have we? Again, maybe not for a while at least.
No.
No, that shouldn't be a problem now. So I think from now onwards, it wouldn't make a difference. But I think initially, absolutely, I think Matt's kind of sadly spot on there that we've had something that we were as a club were firmly against has worked in our favour, amazingly.
I think it's one of them beautifully poetic things that, philosophical things to look at. And I mean, in any sort of reality, it would have affected every team differently. I think any team at the top has benefited from it because they can utilise more squad players who are of a higher quality. So in theory, it shouldn't have made a difference because us being where we are in the table and us being the size of club we are, shouldn't have as many players to influence games to bring on. But it's one of those. It's a very difficult question to answer because it's very theoretical. But I would hope, and I'm with you, Rich, that he'd adapt to the situation and we'd still be in the same position.
No, I agree. I say last but not least, we won't kind of go into all of the wish lists, but Links Wolves asks, assuming the following players leave in the summer and we're in the Prem, so the likes of Coutinho, Nunes, Neves, Podence, Traore, who are you signing to link the defensive midfielders and the forwards? Is there anyone who's on sort of your wish list that you'd like to see Wolves going for in the summer?
Alex Scott, straight away.
Yeah, he'd be
That's a good shout.
Yeah. He looked brilliant the other night against City. Really good.
Ever since we were like tenuous linked to him while we in the early days of the window in January, and it's like, oh, will we really? Obviously not. The Bristol City are going to sell their best player at that stage, but you think you get him for under 30 mil, easy. I don't think it's even a question really at that price.
I was actually disappointed he played well because I was thinking there's going to be more people on his radar. He's going to alert more clubs. But yeah, he looked a real player. They'll already have some irons in the fire. I'm pretty sure of that. In regards to linking up the centre, as I say, the midfield to the forwards, I say Kuna's got a big part to play in that for me. But like I said, they'll already have a rough idea. I think he's going to raid Madrid for a few of the players, but I think he's been linked to Carvajal, hasn't he? For the right back slot. So there'll be some Spanish players coming in, no doubt.
If I was going to pick one, and I think his stock will actually drop between now and the summer, is that Amrabat from Fiorentina, who plays for Morocco. He's not played well since the World Cup, but I watched him last night. He was good against AFC Milan. He's starting to play well again. He would be the one for me. I think he links up the areas of the pitch really well and carries the ball and breaks the thirds. So he'd be the one I pick. If you get him for 25 million, I think he'd be a great signing.
I'd say because he's someone who really stood out in the World Cup and got linked heavily to a few teams, didn't he? And I was surprised the move didn't pan out for him in the in January. So it'd be interesting. I think that's been a thing with the World Cup in general, isn't it? That you do sometimes get the World Cup tax and a bit of a fluctuation post it, but I guess because of it, being played at the time of year it was. It's given clubs an extra 6 months to make sure that they're, I don't know, that they're still worth it in a way.
Certainly not a James Rodriguez situation.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, time will tell on that. But as I said, it's been a good week for Wolves, and long may it continue. Because we've got, I was going to say, another week till our next game, but we will be back to preview the Newcastle game, which is a Sunday 4:30 kickoff, which is going to be an absolute great one for anyone travelling up there and really prioritising the away fans, of course. Big thanks to our sponsors as always, and shouts out to 90 Min Football Network. Make sure you keep up to date with all things Wolves Fancast at Wolves Fancast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And until next time, it's goodbye from Jafo.
Good night.
It's goodbye from Tom.
Bye, Wolves fans.
It's goodbye from Stu.
Goodbye, everyone.
I was half waiting because usually...
that's why I smiled, because I knew I was going to
last, isn't it?
Yeah, I was going to put him on edge because he expected me to say something ridiculous again. No?
No, not today. And it's goodbye for me. See you next time. How?